Hello, welcome to this channel again Today I'll be telling you a story from my childhood days. My parents were civil servants in Nigeria and were living in a staff quarters where we had a vast land for farming. So my parents took us to farm when we were much younger. For those of you that think I've never farmed before, I have farmed. I have farmed when I was much younger. After secondary school, all those farming issues, were laid to rest. So, all right. So it was that period when HIV/AIDS was all over the place. Girls were getting pregnant out of wedlock. It was the period when you go to the streets and see a lot of brothels, women traveling from one part of the country to the other, messing up themselves like that. And one day it was a big worry for parents, at that time. And one day we were on the farm and we were working. Then my mommy stood up, and she said, "I know you will be a good girl." When she said those words, it struck me hard. And it meant something to me. It meant to me that she trusted me and she believed that I will not disappoint her in life. Like she didn't want to hear all these kind of stories she was hearing about some other girls. And those words stayed with me. They stayed with me throughout my life. It made me so focused on what I really wanted to do, and I was also conscious of the fact that my mother trusted me and she wouldn't want me to fail her. So those were words of affirmation for me, and those words became my inner voice. And it came to be a time when I had finished secondary school, waiting to get admission. My friends those days, by the way, all had boyfriends. They all had boyfriends, and it was just me. I didn't have a boyfriend. Well, not because boys were not coming, but because that inner voice rather, kept ringing in me. And I said the first step to misbehaving is having a boyfriend. That was what was on my mind. To the extent that there was this copper in those days that when you are done with secondary school, you are just alone in the house. Your parents go to work, your siblings go to school, and then you are just at home like that. So I was left in the house, and this copper guy would come to my door and try to knock. The first time he caught me off guard, and he met me in the parlor, and then he began to tell me he loved me, blah blah blah, that he will marry me, all those stuff. So I was like, see, I'm not ready for any relationship right now because I know I won't be able to manage it, and I just want to further my education. Those were my words to him, and he begged and begged. Well, I told him what was on my mind, and he left. When he left, surprisingly, his friend also came to ask me out. But the words that kept me going were the words of my mother. And it came to a point where I would see him coming through the window. In fact, one day I saw him coming. He was already so close. The door was open, so I couldn't rush to close the door. He would just know that someone is there. And I ran into the bedroom and I went into the wardrobe and I closed myself in there. And I was just, shaking. I was just afraid. I said, this guy should not enter this room, And he came, he knocked, he stayed. After staying and asking, is anyone home? Is anyone home? Well, he left. So a point came when, after that period, of course, I didn't agree to, having any relationship with him. So there was a day I was coming from town. It was the days of Okada, and I was on a bike. And a voice told me, now you've graduated, you're going to the university. At least it's time to have a boyfriend, And that voice was so strong. And I remembered my mother's words. She said, I know you will be a good girl. Now, I'm not saying that some people don't get into relationship that end in marriage without, soiling the bed and all those stuff. Without engaging in any form of immorality before marriage. I'm not saying it's not a possibility, but I'm just trying to tell you the words that shaped my behavior and made me to stay the way I was until I got to 300 level before I eventually started a relationship. At that time, my mind was focused. I knew what I wanted, and when the person came, it was just him. So I would like to introduce you to the next series. My next series is titled The Parent's Inner Voice. The Parent's Inner Voice. And I'm going to be walking us through about 12 series, thereabout, and I trust that you will learn a lot. So in my next video, I'll be talking about the first part of that particular series. To introduce this properly, In the book of First Chronicles chapter 4, verse 9 to 10, I believe you remember the story of Jabez. Jabez was an honorable person, very honorable. But the Bible says his mother named him Jabez because she bore him in sorrow. The meaning of Jabez was pain, something that causes pain or sorrow. And this must have shaped his life and followed him, because a name is a prophecy, a name is a destination. So the name actually followed him through life. And that inner voice must have been in him and shaped him that way until he heard an external voice that made him know that, wait, this sorrow is not supposed to be my place. I am actually an honorable person. And he called on the name of God, and he said that you will bless me indeed, enlarge my coast, and that your hand will be with me, and that you will keep me from evil, and from that evil will not grieve me. And then the Bible says God answered. God granted his request, and he became the true honorable man that he is, and sorrow left him. So I'm trying to say that, or I am buttressing the fact that there is an inner voice in human beings that is actually generated by parents or guardians. So thank you for watching this particular story. Stay tuned for the next series. Kindly subscribe to our channel and ensure that you watch the next series to come, because it will be very educative, I promise you. Thank you for watching again. Bye.